In an early season slide slump, is it time for Big Ben and the black and gold to hit the panic button? And it is Wednesday, which means two things: hump day, and Nick's got NFL tears for us all. Good Wednesday morning, everyone. Welcome to First Things First. Jenna Wolf, Chris Broussard, Kevin Wildes, Nick Wright in his tear. Nick, the world is watching. We want to know what's happening at the very top. If there's going to be movement, there's going to be truth, if there's going to be integrity and honesty.
I've been embargoed from revealing anything until 8 a.m. Eastern time. However, I can say there's been significant movement at the top. That's all I can say. Significant movement at the top.
I can live with that.
That is all we want. Broussard can live with that, and life is a good thing. Get to all that after we get to all this. The Brady-Belichick Bowl. This Sunday night, Tom Brady returns to Foxborough with his Bucs to face his former team, former coach, former home for 20 years, the New England Patriots. After dominating the league with Belichick all that time, all those Super Bowls, he returns as the defending Super Bowl champ. Awkward. So to say Brady has a good idea of what he's going to see Sunday would be an understatement. Take a listen to this.
But that's interesting. You're saying you know what you've internalized what it'll feel like.
Oh yeah, I know exactly. I can envision everything. Sunday Night Football, I know what that's like. I know what the night's like. I know what the wind's like. I know how their team's going to prepare. I know what their schedule is going to be like. I know what's going to be said.
All right, we got to go to the guy who's had this game circled on his calendar since birth, Kevin Wildes. What do you make of Tom Brady's comments?
My take on Tom Brady's comments is that he's trying to convince himself that he won't be a sentimental mess during this game. And this game is not about schemes, and it's not about how good the Bucs offense is. This is the most emotional game in NFL history. And we know Tom Brady can play happy. He's won 85% of his home games. So when the crowd is supporting him, we know he can play. We know he can play under pressure. He's won 77% of his playoff games. Pressure is not an issue. We have no idea if he can play with a sentimental hurricane that will be swirling around Foxborough. I think it's going to gobble him up, just like it's gobbled up other players. So I want to show you two quotes, Broussard. First one's going to be from Peyton. The second one's going to be from Emmitt Smith. The first one is from Peyton. This is when he went back to Indy. They lost. I'm in some ways somewhat relieved this game is over. I feel like hopefully we'll get a chance to play these guys again. If there is a next time, it may be a little bit easier because it was somewhat of an emotional week. That was Peyton, who is pretty understated. Let's see how Emmitt did on his return to Dallas. I think that day was the day my soul for the game left. Sitting in that locker room, getting dressed in the visitors' locker room, knowing I was supposed to be on the other side, it brought tears to my eyes before the game. I was crying and sobbing like a baby. This is not my locker room. I am not supposed to be in here. I think Tom Brady is going to have a similar experience to Emmitt and Peyton, although Peyton's quote was a little more measured. Here's why, Broussard. I think all of this stuff that he is doing, he's trying to convince himself that he's not going to be a mess. He's going to be. He is a sentimental guy. You want to have proof of it? At the press conference in the Super Bowl, he can handle media. He's been doing media for 20 years. There was a kid reporter. Kid reporter's like, hey, you're a lot of people's hero. Who's your hero? He's like, good question. He started talking about his dad and almost started breaking down. You've never seen an interview. It's because a kid asked him a question because Tom Brady, in his heart, is a very sentimental guy, and that's going to affect his play. Now, I know people will be like, well, what about Brett Favre? Brett Favre came back to Lambeau and crushed, threw 4 touchdowns. That is not it at all. Brett Favre was fired up and furious at the Packers. Tom Brady does not feel that way, and that is not going to be the reaction from the Foxborough crowd. It is going to be way too sentimental for him, and that is why I predicted it on Friday that the Bucs would come out and be 2-2 on Monday. I'm staying with it. The Bucs will lose. The Patriots win because Tom Brady is going to be an emotional mess.
Wow. Wow, wow.
True.
Wow.
Facts.
That's all. A for effort. I'll give you an A for effort. You're trying, I think you're the one. You're trying to convince yourself why your New England Patriots are going to beat Tom Brady and the defending Super Bowl champions. It is not true. First of all, you bring up Emmitt Smith. And with all due respect to the awesome and legendary Emmitt Smith.
He was washed.
Emmitt Smith, here's the difference. Yeah, he was washed. He was done.
Wow.
When he went back to Dallas, he gained 256 yards that season for the 4-12 Arizona Cardinals on 2.8 yards per carry. He wasn't crying because of sentiment in Dallas. He was crying because his knees, his hips, and his ribs were killing him. He was done. Tom Brady has a host of things in front of him. He's still in his prime. To hear him tell me he's got 6 more years to play. Yes, he's got much more to do on the field. So that's the difference. Peyton Manning, obviously tremendous player, but he wasn't as mentally tough as Tom Brady. All right, Peyton Manning lost more playoff games than any quarterback since the merger. He lost two more than Tom Brady, and Brady's played 18 more playoff games than him. Wild, you should know this, and you do know it, but you're trying to convince yourself. I get it. Tom Brady is not the GOAT because he had the greatest arm, because he had the most accuracy, because, he had great mobility. He's the GOAT because he had the greatest mind. He has the greatest focus. I'll give you that initially there'll be a little bit of emotion. But once they get going, once he completes that first pass to Antonio Brown or Gronk, it'll be just another game for 60 minutes.
No way.
And in that game, he is going to put a butt kicking on your Patriots. 350-plus yards, 4 touchdowns.
Not just a win.
Nick, that's my prediction.
Butt kicking.
Tampa Bay
Here's the thing, and I hate to do this, but you're both wrong in this regard. I don't think Brady is going to play great. I think that A, Belichick, if he knows anything, knows how to scheme against Tom Brady, or at least he should. And B, I absolutely agree with Wilds that this will be an emotional experience, the likes of which Brady has never had on a football field. I think those are good points. So why do I think Wilds is wrong? Because those points won't matter because the Patriots are so overmatched. I thought you were going to, Wilds, use the LeBron going back to Cleveland example, but LeBron actually played great in that first game. He had like 38 points.
Great.
But he could have had 18 points, and the Heat would have won. You know why? Because the Cavs' best player that game was Daniel Gibson. Their only starter in double figures was Mo Williams with 11. And when you look up and down the Patriots roster, buddy, do you have a running back that's good? Do you have a wide receiver that's good? Do you have a tight end that is producing at a good level?
Yes.
Tell me. Do you have a defense? You do. No, producing at a good level. You have expensive tight ends, which is nice.
Yeah.
Not really, but it is. Listen, the Patriots right now are a team with a very, very good linebacking core, and they will have a good secondary once Gilmore comes back.
Decent
Other than that, the team's no good. And I guess a good offensive line in theory, but what's good blocking if no one can actually get yards? You have a bad quarterback, maybe he'll be good one day, he's bad. You have league average running backs, you have league average at best wide receivers, and you have expensive, unproductive tight ends. So, listen, this is what happens when you whiff on the draft for 5 straight years. This is what happens when your last home run draft pick was Joe Tooney in 2016. The roster stinks. So Brady, it's not luck. It's not Peyton going up against an 11-5 Andrew Luck and Colts team. It's not that. And so even if Brady is sobbing in the huddle, how do they win? How do they win? That's the question.
Okay, so first of all, we just had open tryouts looking for another running back. So the idea we don't have a running back, well, yeah, we do. We just had tryouts. We're going to get somebody. Second of all, for all audience members who don't believe that sentimentality will affect Tom Brady, during this upcoming commercial break, Put on Boys to Men, end of the road, and try to do 20 push-ups while you're listening. It will be impossible. Try it, and that will be Tom Brady times 1,000, Jenna.
I love it, Kevin Wiles.
That
I love it
doesn't
so much.
change.
I'm
Your
with
roster's
you.
stinking, buddy.
True.
It doesn't, but it makes him feel better, Nick. And you know what? For purposes of these 2 hours, I want Wiles feeling better. Hey, let's talk about this guy. He hasn't been looking or feeling so great.